Jake here for Extreme Terrain, and today I'm taking a look at the B&M Heavy Duty Transfer Case Shift Cable Conversion Kit fitting 1997 to 2006 TJ Wranglers excluding Rubicon models. This kit is ideal for the TJ owner who wants some more positive shift action for their transfer case without the need to make lots of modifications. It's perfect for stock or lifted TJs and provides a much stronger part than you get from the factory, and it offers improved engagement versus stock as well. Now, nothing is worse than trying to engage four-wheel drive only to realize that your cable has snapped or you can't get the transfer case to shift, because in that situation, you're very likely in need of the extra traction. Now, this kit from B&M does exactly what it says on the label. It provides you with a heavy-duty replacement to your stock shift cable. It's going to avoid that exact problem. It replaces the sometimes problematic factory Z linkage with some much sturdier bits. Now, first is the thick shift cable. At nearly ½ an inch in diameter, it's got plenty of strength to get things engaged the way they were always meant to. It's going to replace your thin factory cable. It's going to provide much smoother, more positive shifts with each use. You also get brand new heavy-duty brackets for either end of the linkage to further strengthen things up. And this kit provides you with metal hardware to replace the plastic factory pieces, again making this much stronger and longer lasting than what you get from the factory. Now, this is also going to work with TJs that are both stock or lifted. Whether it's a suspension or a body lift or both, there's enough cable here to cover you. 48 inches of it to be exact. And this also works with your factory shift lever, so there's no need to make other modifications in order to enjoy the positive shift experience and increased reliability. The cable is constructed from heavy-duty 0.425-inch thick cable with 6061 aluminum ends for extra strength and durability. The brackets are also constructed from heavy-duty steel and are finished with a gloss black powder coat to protect against corrosion and rust. So if you are hitting it on the trail, you're not going to have to worry about those rusting and breaking off. Suffice it to say, this kit does live up to the name. But what's not heavy duty is the price, as this one's gonna come in right around $200, and it gives you a pretty significant upgrade for your money. Now, while $200 for a cable and some brackets is still a good chunk of change, this is absolutely a worthwhile investment if you frequently find yourself engaging your transfer case. Because again, this is gonna be much stronger and a much more reliable setup that's not gonna leave you stranded. And let's face it, a tow out of the woods is much more embarrassing, and it's definitely gonna cost you more money than this kit. Installation will get a 2 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and you should expect this to take you around an hour to complete. Now, the job isn't particularly difficult, and it is a totally bolt-on setup, so no modifications are required. However, you do need to get up underneath, and access can be a little tricky. But to walk you through that process and give you all the guidance you need, let's hand it over to one of our XT customers.
All right, for this job, here's the tools that we need. I used a floor jack to be able to lift the skid plate down and up safely. I used a jack stand to put underneath the rear drive shaft so it didn't sag too much. Then I used 2 impact guns, my air impact gun for the large bolts on the skid plate, and then my little guy for the rest of the bolts that I used. Just need a needle nose pliers for the cotter pins, and then 3/8 and ½ inch socket with 10, 11, 13, 15, and 3/4 inch sockets, and a socket extender to get that one nasty bolt off of one of the brackets, and then a screwdriver to pull the grommet out, and a 15/16 inch wrench to tighten up the brass nuts on the cable assembly. And those are the tools that we used for the job. So here's the OEM linkage, and there's a bunch of parts we need to take off of here. There's 2 brackets. There's this bracket right here, and it's held on by 2 bolts. One here, it's a 15 millimeter, and then same 15 millimeter up on top, and this guy's a bugger to get to, and I'll explain how I am able to get that off when we get to that part. And here's what's broken right here. The linkage has a rubber grommet on the end and goes into the shifter lever. In Colorado, everything's dry, so the rubber grommet dried out and it just popped right out. So we're gonna upgrade it today. So we're gonna start by taking this bracket on the right off, right here, and This one is actually held in from inside the cab, so we gotta go in and move some carpet. All right, so the 4 bolts that we need to get to are right underneath here in the footwell. And we're lucky enough to have a Jeep that has full carpet in here, but that means I have to take it all out. So if you have the full carpet, there's actually 2 tabs that we need to remove. Right there, and they just pop off. Stick them in the cup holder so I don't lose them. And then I just need to fold the carpet down underneath the pedals. And then it just slides out from the center console. And just get it folded back as far as you need to get access to those 4 bolts. And there we go. There's those 4 bolts. All right, so we're gonna take out those 4 10mm bolts. And that one seems to be stripped on the other side, so after removing those 4 bolts from inside the Jeep, this bracket right here should just pop right off. And that one is not ready to come off yet, so now we got to remove the 2 nuts that hold the other bracket on, the one on the bottom and the one on top. Again, that's the 15mm socket. Let's see if I can get at this one. Kind of tight. Oh, there we go. And don't lose these nuts because these 2 are going to get reused for the new bracket. And then this one is a hard one to get to. So, and it's a hard one to film too. So, let's see. I'm using a deep well socket on this, so I'm gonna put an extension on it because I can't quite get to it. There we go. And there's not much room to work up there. I'm already off the nut. Alright, I finally got it far enough that I can take it off with my fingers. There goes the nut. And I just gotta get it off the bolts. And that one is loose. And then there's just one last part left to pop out, and this is the grommet, rubber grommet that holds it into the transfer case here. And I'm just gonna grab a big screwdriver and I'm gonna try to pop that out. All right, so I got my big screwdriver and we're just gonna work our way around to pop this arm out of this grommet right here. So let's see if I can get in there. Yep, it comes right out, there we go. All right. There we go. And let's thread this out of here. There we go. Right, so now that I got the old linkage out, we can compare what we're putting in here. So here's the old OEM, and this is where it broke. The grommet came out from the shift handle. And then you can see the brackets. Here's the new bracket that's going in, matches up with this one, and it only goes in one way because of the bend that's in there. And then this bracket is the one that we have to reuse the 2 bolts on. So with the new kit, comes with these rubber grommets here. You just feed them through each one of the holes, and then comes with the new washer and bolt that you attach from the inside. All right, so we're gonna install the first bracket underneath the Jeep. These bolts go in from the inside though. So each one of these is the 10mm, or 11mm, sorry, 11mm bolts. Put a washer on it, stick it through the holes. And then for this, on the bracket, We need to feed each one of these through. So they just go like this, rubber grommet on the back side. Give it a twist if it's being a bugger. There we go. So it's gonna install against the Jeep. This is the body side, so it's gonna install just like this against the body. And that's gonna cause it so there's no vibrations. So I'm gonna go underneath the Jeep and I'm gonna line them up with the bolts, and I'm gonna hold it up against the bolts there, and I'm gonna have my helper start screwing all of those in. So when we come back, I'll have this installed. All right, so here we are back underneath the Jeep. Here's the bracket that we were installing. It was really a two-person job to hold on the bottom to line everything up, and then somebody to screw those bolts down in through these grommets. And this is the way it should look. It ends up having the rubber on both sides against the body, between the body and the bracket, and then cinches it down. Just be careful not to over tighten these grommets. All right, now we're gonna install the second bracket. This one reuses the hardware like I said before. A lot of hoses in the way, so you gotta get them lined up. And a good way to know that you're right is they etched out their name in here. It reads left to right, so I'm gonna put those 2 reused nuts back on. A whole lot more room after getting the OEM part out. Top one, let's try the extension again. Alright, let's get the bottom one. Great. Now we're ready to install the cable. All right, before I put the cable in, I realized I have to take off the lever arm on the transfer case. The other end doesn't change, this end does, and it comes with a new one, so I'm just gonna take this one off. Make sure I don't lose the nut because I'm gonna reuse that in the washer too. And here's the new lever arm. And as you can see right here, can only go on one way. So I'll get that lined up and get it screwed on. There we go. All right, one last thing to remove before I can put the cable on. There's a rubber grommet in the lever arm that goes up into the Jeep. The kit comes with one, so I'm gonna remove this one with the screwdriver. There we go. To install the cable, first we need to take these brass nuts off. It's identical on both ends. And then take one of the washers off. And then this slides through on the hole on the bracket. And it's pretty self-explanatory which way they go, because you want the cable facing levers. So that one goes in there, slide your washer back on. And slide the nut on. And just get it finger tight for now because we might need to adjust the length of these. Looks good. And then there's going to be a curve to the next one, so I'm going to take this nut off. And when I come back, I'll show you which bracket and the orientation of the cable is. All right, the next thing I'm gonna do is install the linkages on the ends of the cable. You got these linkages with the pin and the cotter pins that go with it. Be careful of the really small cotter pins. And here's the new grommet for the lever side. So I'm gonna screw these in, and then I'm gonna adjust the cable to get it to the correct length. All right, so with the cable installed, you can see this is the lever arm that goes up into the Jeep. The cable's mounted in this bracket, and it curves around and comes back and is mounted through this bracket. I can already see that I'm probably not gonna be long enough. No, actually, I think I will be. I think I'll be actually really good here. So I need to screw the linkages on both ends and then fasten them with the cotter pins, and we should be good to go. One thing to keep in mind, you need to know the orientation of each one of these lever arms. I know when we parked the Jeep that it was in two-wheel drive, and two-wheel drive is on the transfer case, the lever arm needs to be all the way towards the front of the Jeep, which it is. And it needs to be all the way to the back of the Jeep on the one that's connected to the shift lever inside the Jeep. So I got those oriented right, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna screw both of the linkages on the end of the arms and get ready to install. All right, so I got the linkage ends screwed onto the cable assembly, and I can see that I'm gonna need to make an adjustment, a major adjustment in the cable to get that down far enough, because I don't want to unscrew this any further. I want to have enough contact with the threads on the cable to make sure it stays on there nice and tight. So what I need to do is I just need to make an adjustment right here. I need to loosen this nut, bring the cable in a little bit, and line that up. So loosen the front, so release the tension. Cable a little bit. And then get the bracket lined up over here. The holes are lined up, so I'm gonna go ahead and tighten that down. Just finger tight still for now until I get everything completely lined up. All right, that looks really good on that end. Let's check the other end. And I can see I need to do the exact same thing over here. So I'm gonna release the tension and adjust that just like I did with the other one. All right, so I had to make major adjustments on both the top and the bottom bracket here. I'm actually all the way to the inside of the cable on both the top and the bottom to match up with the linkages in the lever arms over here. So now that I got the perfect fit, I'm gonna put the linkages onto the lever arms. On the bottom one, there's no grommet or anything. It just goes right in. And then I'll put the cotter pin in, and then on the top. Remember, you got the grommet that goes in and it only goes in one way. It goes from the driver's side to the passenger side direction. Get that linkage up in there. There we go. And then I'll put the cotter pin in that one too. All right, now that we have everything installed, I'm just gonna test it before we put the skid plate back on. Make sure that it all works and that we don't have anything binding. So I'm gonna shift from 2 high to 4 high. That works just fine. Back into 2 high. All right, the last step before we button this all back up is to tighten down the brass nuts for the major adjustments. It's a 15/16 inch wrench. I'm just gonna tighten the top one and the bottom one down, and then we can put everything back together. All right, the last step is put the skid plate back on. Slide it. You want to get all the holes aligned. Really important that these studs there are lined up before you jack it up too far so you don't bend those over. Those lined up. Make sure I get these lined up before I go too far. Those look pretty good. 3 big bolts. This center one on all the way. And then run over to the other side and do the same thing on the other side for the other 3. All right, so I'm gonna put the final 4 nuts on the skid plate that go in the 4 holes here. First one, thread it on. Tighten those down. take the jack stand out. More my jack. And clean up.
That's going to wrap it up here for our review and install of the B&M Heavy Duty Transfer Case Shift Cable Conversion Kit fitting 1997 to 2006 TJ Wranglers excluding Rubicon models. Thanks so much for watching, and as always for all things Jeep, be sure to keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.